Okay, let's dive right in with something pretty shocking, something you probably wouldn't expect from a NATO ally.
No, definitely not. We're talking about an allegation from September 2025. It really escalates things from just political friction into, well, military intelligence territory.
Right. Ukrainian military radar supposedly tracked multiple drones, reconnaissance drones, over Transcarpathia,
And the analysis pointed to these drones coming from Hungary.
a NATO member.
Huh?
And the intelligence suggests the data they gathered scouting Ukrainian facilities, air defenses, was meant for Moscow.
To help target Russian strikes, I mean, that's a huge jump.
It's about the highest level of potential coordination we've heard about, moving beyond just, diplomatic arguments to actively helping Russia's war effort.
Exactly. It's not always front-page news, this situation, but it is genuinely one of the big underlying threats to Western unity right now.
Welcome to Nation Scope Podcast.
Join us, Jordan, Jamie, as we dig into the headlines, the breaking stories, and the critical events shaping the U.S. and the world.
Today, we are doing a deep dive into this really complex, often overlooked conflict, what some are calling the Quiet War, between Hungary and Ukraine, focused on the Transcarpathia region.
And this isn't just, a simple border disagreement. We're looking at a hybrid conflict with roots in history, impacting European unity, and, yeah, with the Kremlin playing a significant role.
And definitely stick with us, because we're going to get into the specifics of the money involved, like a staggering 115 million Hungary has poured into this region.
And how this whole diplomatic battle has actually pushed the EU to create brand new procedures, basically legal workarounds, just to get past one country's veto, Hungary's veto.
So this quiet war, let's unpack that term first. What does it actually mean?
Well, quiet suggests it's low intensity, maybe simmering rather than boiling over, but the consequences are definitely high.
Right. It's not tanks rolling across borders. It's fought with different tools, modern hybrid warfare tools.
Things like intense diplomatic pressure, economic leverage, that the 115 million mentioned, information campaigns, propaganda, and even clandestine activities. It's a war of attrition, really.
Designed to just keep things unstable.
Pretty much. To create this constant low-level instability in Western Ukraine. Yeah. To chip away at Kyiv's sovereignty, especially while they're fighting this massive war against Russia in the east. It's like fighting on two fronts, almost.
So how does this dynamic work? Who are the key players and what do they want?
Okay, you've basically got a three-player game here. Budapest, Kyiv, and the Kremlin. Their motivations clash, but they're also tangled up together.
Let's start with Budapest. Orbán's government. What's driving their actions?
It seems deeply ideological, fundamentally. A lot of it goes back to the Treaty of Trianon in 1920.
Ah, the post-World War I treaty.
Exactly. Which detached Carpathia, that's Transcarpathia, from what was historical Hungary. Orbán's government talks about Nemzetpolitika national policy.
Which means?
It frames protecting ethnic Hungarians living outside Hungary's borders as a national duty, a historical obligation. But it also, very conveniently, gives them leverage within the EU and NATO.
Okay, so that's Budapest. What about Kyiv's perspective?
For Kyiv, this is obviously seen as a major threat. Like you said, a de facto second front while they're fighting for survival against Russia.
So their actions, like the language laws we hear about, they see those as defensive.
Yes, absolutely. They frame it as essential for national unity, for cohesion.
Yeah.
Part of a necessary process they call derussification, pushing back against generations of Russian influence, not primarily as an attack on minorities, but as self-defense.
And then there's the third player, the Kremlin.
Right. And Moscow is arguably the main beneficiary here. They actively pour fuel on these ethnic and historical flames.
To what end?
Well, destabilizing Ukraine internally is a big one. Sowing division within NATO and the EU is another key goal. And of course, cultivating Hungary as a sort of friendly voice, a Trojan horse, inside those Western alliances that can block things like sanctions or aid to Ukraine.
It's a potent mix. Historical grievance meets modern geopolitics.
Definitely. And Budapest has developed some specific tools to pursue its goals. This idea of soft power as a hard weapon really captures it.
And the prime example is passports, right? The passport ploy.
Exactly. Since 2010, Hungary made it much easier for ethnic Hungarians in neighboring countries to get Hungarian citizenship, and therefore passports.
But crucially, Ukrainian law doesn't allow dual citizenship. So this was done quietly.
Very quietly, or at least it was meant to be. The whole thing blew up in 2018 with that undercover video.
Ah, the one filmed inside the consulate.
Yeah, in Belarus.
Yeah.
It showed Hungarian diplomats literally telling Ukrainian citizens who were taking the oath to hide their new Hungarian citizenship from the Ukrainian authorities.
So the passport wasn't just about identity, it was about shifting allegiance, creating divided loyalty.
That seems to be the clear political aim, and it's reinforced by money, what you call the foreign front.
The 115 million Garin figure, where did that money actually go?
Well, the data shows that between 2011 and 2020, at least 115 million flowed into Transcarpathia, mostly via a state-run foundation, the Bethlen Gabor Fund.
And what did it support?
Basically, the entire infrastructure of the Hungarian community there. Schools, churches, local media outlets, cultural organizations, even political groups like the main Hungarian party, KMKSZ.
Creating a dependency.
A deep dependency. It means loyalty, funding, support, it all flows towards Budapest, not Kyiv.
But there's a strange twist here with demographics, isn't there?
There is. It's a real paradox. The policy is framed as protecting the Hungarian minority, keeping them rooted in Transcarpathia.
But giving them an EU passport
Makes it much easier for them to leave,
Yeah.
to find work in wealthier EU countries. So the population has actually been declining significantly. Estimates suggest maybe over 15% since 2001.
So the tool meant to anchor them actually helps them disperse.
Exactly. It highlights a potential contradiction in the Nemzetpolitika itself. And the commitment to protection isn't always absolute either.
What do you mean?
We'll look at June 2024. The Orbán government suddenly cut housing subsidies for Ukrainian refugees in Hungary.
Okay.
And reports indicated this hit Hungarian-speaking Roma refugees from Transcarpathia particularly hard. Some of the most vulnerable people supposedly covered by this national policy.
So what does that tell us?
It suggests the Nemzetpolitika is maybe more of a calculated political tool than a firm, unwavering commitment. When protecting Hungarian speakers clashes with other priorities, like Orbán's broader anti-migration stance, the policy can be adjusted and dropped.
Which brings us back to how this aligns with the Kremlin's interests. There's a disturbing echo, isn't there?
A chilling parallel, yeah. Russia justified its invasion partly by claiming to protect oppressed Russian speakers in Ukraine.
And Hungary's rhetoric about Hungarians in Transcarpathia facing humiliation or discrimination, it sounds familiar.
Very familiar. And this narrative isn't just rhetoric, it's actively spread. Pro-government media in Hungary often repeats core Kremlin talking points about Ukraine.
Like calling Ukraine a failed state or a puppet state.
Yes, and even pushing the false claim that Ukraine committed genocide against its minorities. It's quite pervasive.
Is there evidence this propaganda works?
Well, one survey was pretty striking. It found that 37% of Hungarians actually believed the Russian claim about Ukraine committing genocide against Russian speakers. That suggests the information environment is significantly influenced.
And beyond words, there's the energy connection, too.
Absolutely crucial. Hungary has deliberately maintained a heavy reliance on Russian energy. Oil through the Rizba pipeline, gas through Turk Stream.
Which gives Moscow leverage.
Huge leverage. It ensures Hungary remains the loudest voice in the EU, arguing against energy sanctions on Russia. It basically locks their economic interests into alignment with Moscow's geopolitical goals.
And then we get to examples that look like direct operational coordination, like that POW transfer in 2023.
Right, the June 2023 incident was very murky. The Russian Orthodox Church and the Hungarian government arranged for 11 ethnic Hungarian POWs, Ukrainian soldiers, to be transferred directly to Hungary.
Bypassing Kyiv completely.
Completely. They didn't inform the Ukrainian government. Kyiv was furious, saw it as a major provocation.
An attempt by Budapest to show they could act unilaterally regarding Ukrainian citizens, maybe? Using Moscow's help?
That's certainly how Kyiv interpreted it. And it leads us right back to where we started those alleged drone flights in September 2025.
A NATO country potentially targeting intelligence to Moscow. It's hard to even process that. How does an alliance like NATO handle that possibility?
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It fundamentally undermines trust. If the intelligence assessment is accurate that these drones were scouting targets for Russia, it crosses every conceivable line of alliance solidarity.
It suggests Budapest's loyalty isn't primarily with NATO or the West.
That's the unavoidable conclusion many allies are likely drawing. It makes Hungary a massive strategic liability.
So what are the broader consequences of this sustained behavior for Western alliances, for supporting Ukraine?
The main consequence is systematic obstruction, blocking things. Since 2017, Hungary has repeatedly blocked high-level NATO-Ukraine Commission meetings.
And within the EU.
Similar story. Constant threats to veto key decisions, Ukraine's EU accession talks, critical financial aid packages. It slows everything down and creates uncertainty.
Has this damaged relationships?
Deeply. It's essentially shattered the unity of the Visegrad group, that's Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. And within NATO and the EU, there's immense frustration, a real loss of trust. Allies increasingly see the Orbán government as prioritizing Moscow's agenda.
You mentioned the EU had to devise workarounds.
Yes, that's quite significant. Hungary's refusal to budge has forced the EU into finding new ways to operate, essentially isolating Budapest on certain issues. They call it managing the Hungarian obstacle.
Like with the accession talk.
Exactly. In 2025, faced with a likely veto, the EU reportedly found a procedural way to let the technical preparations, the groundwork for Ukraine's accession, move forward without needing Hungary's formal green light at that stage.
That's a big deal. It shows the EU is willing to sideline a member state if necessary.
It signals that the rest of the EU now sees Hungary's obstructionism as a systemic problem that needs to be managed, even contained. It might actually backfire on Orbán, driving institutional changes that reduce his veto power over time.
Okay, so let's try to pull this together for you, the listener. The quiet war isn't some random spat. It seems to be a deliberate long-term strategy by Budapest.
A strategy using historical grievances, fueled by significant financial investment, that has effectively turned Hungary into a channel for Russian influence and a persistent spoiler within NATO and the EU.
And the foundation of it all seems to be this idea of historical revisionism, that borders drawn after wars were wrong and need correcting based on ethnicity.
Which leads to a final, quite unsettling thought. Given how deep this ideological commitment seems to be in Budapest, what's the risk of escalation?
Meaning, could this quiet war turn not so quiet?
Could it? If the war in Ukraine takes a drastic turn, perhaps decisively in Russia's favor, is it conceivable that Budapest might see an opportunity?
To do what? Send troops.
Possibly under the guise of a peacekeeping mission. To protect the ethnic Hungarian population. Maybe even to secure territorial changes.
That sounds extreme, but given the rhetoric.
It remains a high-risk, maybe low-probability scenario for now. But when a conflict strategy is built so explicitly on challenging existing borders based on historical claims, you have to consider where that logic could ultimately lead.
The key takeaway seems to be that this historical grievance isn't just history.
No, it's alive, it's weaponized, and it's operating right now, creating friction and furthering Moscow's aims from inside the Western alliances.
You've been listening to Nation Scope podcast, where Jordan and Jamie analyze the stories shaping America and the world.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.